And now we are going to.
I call this meeting to order. This meeting is administrative review meeting, October 19th, 2022. We've got two items on the agenda. First item is, first item is minutes, isn't it?
Yes.
So three items on the agenda. I did chat with Rick. Rick mentioned he had no problems with the minutes from last meeting. So we'll approve those today. The way this kind of meeting works, it's the same way that it would work for the planning commission. We just have one person who's officiating over it instead of a whole planning commission. So I don't have to call for a vote for myself. Just wave my magical wand and call it decided. I guess I could for a motion and a vote. But, so on the agenda, we've got item 2.1 and 2.2. 2.1 being AAE 2022-07. Which is consideration action on the, is it Samarel Alternative Access?
That's right.
Request for access to a lot at a location other than across the front lot line. And then 2.2 is LDB 110921. And that is consideration action on final approval of Buffalo Run Subdivision Phase 1. Are these two, are they related to each other? Okay. Felix, you want to dive into item number one?
Yeah, so item number one is the alternative access, and we follow that because it's an alternative to fully dedicated dirt road. In this case, what you have is a one parcel that has frontage off of Old Snow Basin Road, and up in the Huntsville area. But the frontage on Old Snow Basin is really an undesirable space to gain access from, like build a driveway.
Yeah.
Because of the topography, it's just way too steep. Yeah. And then, so what they've done is they've decided to request to access their property at a location other than across the front, what would be considered the front. And so if you continue Snow Basin Road around to a curve, like almost like a little oxbow curve in it, they have a little bit of frontage there to work with. And it's actually quite a bit flatter there. And so what they're looking to do is actually subdivide this property out to two lots. And they meet the zoning requirements. And that subdivision application will come after this all access review. And what this alternative access point would serve as is access for lots 1 and 2, so they would share that access. We have looked it over to see if it meets the criteria for this specific circumstance. The criteria that they'd be looking at is that the applicant could demonstrate the unique boundary or topographic conditions, which would cause an undesirable dangerous condition to be created for property access across the front lot line. And then the second criteria would be we should be demonstrated that the appropriate legal access exists through the historic court decree or execution of the easement or with other instrument capable of conveying such right. So once they come in with the subdivision plat, they'll have to have that access easement agreement between both lot owners for that shared access. We've collected comments from county review agencies, and the county engineer is okay with it, with the understanding they'll have a more in-depth review upon subdivision review. And the county fire district will require fire suppression system for the homes or placement of a fire hydrant. So the staff's recommendation is for approval of this alternative access to access a lot at a location other than across the front lot line. And there's 4 conditions that are added as part of the approval. Let's see if there's anything in there that's out of the ordinary. Pretty standard conditions of approval. But that's pretty much it.
been up to the site, Felix?
I have,
Okay, so as you're exiting the driveway location, I mean, you're seeing the traffic coming from both directions, although the traffic is in front of you in both directions, because of that curve right there. Can you see down the road and up the road?
yeah, as you're waiting in line. So what I did is I drove up to the site, and as you're coming up Snow Basin Road and you're rounding that curve, the visibility on as you're coming up is not the best. But as you're coming downhill from on Old Snow Basin Road traveling, the visibility for that driveway is really good.
So if you're making a left-hand turn out of the driveway, so heading downhill, how does that, what kind of risk do you see there?
Well, as long as from my perspective, if you're standing right there on the edge of Old Snow Basin Road, and based on how high you are, you should have a pretty good view of both downhill traffic and uphill traffic. Right, that was my view, at least.
We know what the slope of the driveway is going to be.
Not at this point, they haven't submitted any type of design.
Okay, I'm just looking at the topos now. Oh, 2 foot country. Oh, it's not terrible. Okay. Well, this is what the alternative access is for. We've approved a lot of alternative accesses before that didn't have quite the same amount of compliance as this does. So both lots have frontage. Lot number 1 I'm seeing is only 111 feet of frontage on the street. Is that, are they going to need to get a variance for that?
Well, they do have the acreage, and I think what I was looking at for lot 1 was considering that basically a landlocked parcel, and lot 1 would gain access across there over lot 2.
Okay. Okay. So lot 1's getting the alternative access because it's getting access over lot 2, and lot 2 is getting the alternative access because where it does have frontage, it's way too steep to get up.
Yeah.
And that makes sense to me. Okay. I don't have any issues with approving that. With a magical wand. Approved. Let's tell me a little bit about Buffalo Run.
Buffalo Run is basically it started off as an 18-lot subdivision. They came before the planning commission and got preliminary and final as an 18-lot development. And the developer has decided that it's better for them at this point to phase it out. So what they've done is they've created 2 phases with 8 lots each. And they've done that in a manner that it reduces the cost up front for development costs for building those roadway improvements. They've also done it in a way that it would allow the owner or the developer to effectively sell his property or the house that he's in now, and then use those funds to help to pay for some of the subdivision. So
That's right, I remember this one. Okay.
What the zoning is A1 zoning. Typically that requires you 40,000 square foot and 150 feet, but they've qualified for connectivity incentivization due to the roadway design. Development plan. They're actually dedicating um, 30 feet or 33 feet on the far eastern edge of the development. They're showing road stubs northward and westward. There's what could potentially be a connection to the south of the development into an existing development called, gosh, what was that called? So, do you remember that? Remember the name of that?
That's where Brock's. It's on 25, not 2550,
2400 south and
2400 south.
That's
Yeah.
right. So there's definitely, they're taking advantage of those connection opportunities through connectivity, so.
is the idea, Felix, on the stub that's pointing to the north? It's a sliver of property owned by Michael Bond, right off of 2200 south. Looks like it's about the same width as a road. I'm assuming that parcel is not a developable parcel.
No, yeah, that would be the connection up through, because Con Fulmer is also looking at some potential development, tying in,
Okay.
bridging that gap.
Yeah, okay. Be a little interesting if whoever Michael Bond is thinking that property is going to be used for something different. Where is that one at? It's right here, which would line up nicely. To get a street connection, but we'd have to work. Oh, Michael Bond's next door as well. I see.
I don't know.
Con has the most, doesn't he?
Con has by far the most frontage.
Oh, and he owns that
He owns
parcel.
that parcel.
Okay.
Con owns that little outlet piece.
No, the one next to it.
Oh, yeah, Con lives, yeah.
And is there space to connect to 2200 through Con's property?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Of his property. It's kind of
Felix, when you did the calculation on this, how much of what percentage of, what I'm trying to say? The ordinance says up to 10% of road rates can be pulled out. Did this reach even close to that 10% threshold?
I didn't think he did,
Okay.
no. I mean, even if you take that 33 feet along the eastern edge and what possibly could be a cul-de-sac on the, stubbing northward, that's well below that. So,
You guys are aware that we just changed the general plan to allow 30-acre lots, right?
no.
If you want to get a rezone and get smaller lot sizes, you can get down to third acre. But
And get more lots out of that.
yeah, so you wouldn't have to, it wouldn't even be connectivity incentivized. You'd still have, so in order to get down to a third acre, to get the rezone, to get down to a third acre, you have to have good street connections, you have to have good pedestrian connections. We're still working on what those rules are. But so far you're checking the boxes. So street connections, pedestrian connections, dark sky lighting, which we're probably just going to make applicable out west anyway. So anyone who doesn't have a building permit by the time we adopt that will have to be dark sky compliant. And then donation to the Parks District. And we're not sure what that donation looks like yet. They're trying to get us a number per residence, but just help building out some of those open spaces and parks. At one time, we were really focused on preserving agricultural land, and I think they're more focused now on just preserving land for park area, and if ag happens to occur on it for a while, that's fine.
So let me just ask a question then. If right now we're trying to structure this so that we can get our first phase developed so that we can sell those lots. By the time we're ready to go into the second phase, could we then come back and visit that and
The 30 acres?
to third acre?
Mhm.
Is that, I'm not a developer, I'm the dummy that bought that property. And at this point, I'm in a little trouble. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think we can easily handle the first phase and that should get us on our way.
Okay. Yeah, and if you're gonna be developing any of those lots, I'd suggest putting the house in the corner so that you can actually get another lot or two out of them. I mean, some of these 1 acre lots, you can,
So then maybe it would be good, and I'm just throwing this out there. I think where we come into our subdivision with our sewer line, we're 10 inch.
Yeah,
Maybe we should put 12 inch in case we decide to go to 30 acre lots, because I have a feeling that the county would like 12 inch in there if we were gonna put that kind of density back there.
10 inch will carry hundreds and hundreds of homes.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, more homes than could connect to this, right? I mean, it's, yeah. It's a fun issue.
Really, the only question mark that I have on the 3rd acre is how much money is the park district gonna want? Or if it is even money. They do have a park. It is, let's see, 2200 south, it's up on 1800, so it may not be within the distance that they're asking for. What they want to see is they want to have at least a 5 acre park within half mile of every residential lot, and then a 20 acre park within 2 miles of every residential lot within their district. And so you're probably further away from that other Taylor Landing. You're probably more than half a mile away from Taylor Landing, I would guess.
I don't know where Taylor Landing is.
So it's on 1800 south and 4300 west.
Yeah, it would be.
Well, that's that big one that's going.
Yeah. Yeah, they were able to get.
I'm at probably a half a mile from the new high school. I think that landing is further.
Yeah, it's further north.
Okay, well, that's good to know that, because I think that's probably maybe not a bad thing to look at if the economy ever comes back. Or if it doesn't, smaller lots are more affordable.
Yeah, right now the Parks District, they're kind of thinking, well, if we can get a bathroom and a parking lot built by a developer, then we have a park. We'll figure out where to put the trees and everything else in the future. Maybe throw out some frisbee golf baskets and call it good until another developer comes in and builds them, some turf. And so that's kind of, I think they're hoping for in kind, because for them to do it, it's going to cost quite a bit more than if you're out there already mobilized and laying asphalt. Might as well swing around the corner and do the same.
So if we're outside of the distance from either of those parks, we obviously wouldn't need to put money into that.
So what we would do is just ask you to make the district satisfied. And so Roger Heslip, who lives on 4700 up the road from this, he's the chair of the Parks District.
Okay.
And so, I mean, they don't have a park. They're a district without a park. And so their first priority is to get a park in, regardless of how far away it is from other properties. So I would assume, hopefully, they would say, you know what, let's just have you help them get that new park in. We got 5 or 6 other developers who are looking at doing the same. Pull all the money together, and there's no reason why they shouldn't be able to at least have bathrooms in the parking lot by the end of next year, hopefully. So, and at that point, when you come in to do the next phase, maybe that goes to a different area.
So just kind of to continue on, maybe a couple more little details. So in order for this to be heard as final approval administratively, the code did require, it does require that they get preliminary approval for the phasing plan from the Western Region Planning Commission, which they did on September 13th. And the Planning Commission did add one condition on top of what I suggested, and that's condition number 5. If you look at the conditions of on this first page, actually page 2 on the top, the developer shall install curb gutter sidewalk on 4700 west to match the rest of the subdivision. So I guess that came from the Planning Commission. They thought that it was a good idea to have those improvements along 4700 west. When we actually had that discussion with the county engineering department with Tucker, and Tucker is basically, he's fine either way, whether they put it in or not. One of his suggestion was if they were to open that line of communication with UDOT, and if UDOT is in agreement with having those improvements, then all good. And I believe, did you guys have a chance?
Yeah, I had a good conversation with Dave Alger yesterday. Oh, Tyler Nelson with Gardner Engineering. So I spoke with Dave Alger, who's the permits representative over at Region 1, and he indicated that they don't have a preference either way. They generally defer to the local entity, whoever that is, city or county. And he was going to issue a letter. He wasn't able to get it out to me before this meeting, but it basically stated the same, that they're not calling for it, they don't necessarily want it. But they generally defer to the local agency.
I mean, unless we know where the water is gonna drain, and, you know, it's kind of hard to set those grades to know exactly how that's supposed to work out for them. So worst thing we could do is piecemeal drainage and, you know, not put boxes in the right spot or not size it right. It's a lot better if we could do longer segments of road. And so I kind of like the engineer's suggestion of deferring. So are you familiar with what a deferral is?
Yeah.
Basically, it applies to, sometimes they only do it to the front two properties, but I feel like it should be done to the entire subdivision. They record essentially an agreement of property. Anyone who buys the property is automatically accepting that agreement. And it says when the county is, or the state is ready to rebuild this road, they're gonna contribute to at least the curb gutter and sidewalk on at least for their portion of it. Okay,
So yeah, staff's recommendation for this is, staff recommends approval, final approval. Buffalo Run Subdivision Phase 1, the proposal for a 9-lot residential development with those conditions in the report.
have we talked at all to the planning commission about not having them installed? At least
No,
curb and
I have
gutter?
not.
Can we just kind of my name is Jim Marziel. I own the property of Buffalo Run Acre Subdivision. Can we just kind of interject what our thoughts on this curb gutter and sidewalk are?
Sure.
So 4700 West is a county road that there is not anywhere near our subdivision.
Right.
Curb, gutter, and sidewalk, nothing.
Yeah.
We're already providing sidewalk right to the north and the east of our subdivision for anybody that might be using our subdivision to go towards that new school or the church. But if we just go throw some more money at curb, gutter, and sidewalk along the shoulder of 4700 West, besides the fact that it's a sidewalk leading to nowhere,
Mhm.
now all we've done is put a 45-mile-an-hour ramp for traffic that's on 4700 West, nowhere near curb and gutter until they get in front of my subdivision.
Yeah.
I think that's more of a liability, not only because I'm gonna pay for it, but also because we're just throwing a curb, sidewalk, and gutter on the shoulder of a 45-mile-an-hour straight long highway
Right,
that has no curb, sidewalk, and gutter.
right.
On either
And
side.
ours just goes to nowhere.
I
It was just-
live around the corner. I live on, Sam Cooper with Golden Spike River. But I live on 2200, but I live on the west side.
Okay.
And there's no,
Even-
yes, and there's no curb and gutter anywhere.
There's no curb and gutter even on the two county roads that border my subdivision,
That is correct.
on either of them.
Yeah.
We're providing access to Con from Mueller's property with our northern road because he no longer will be able to get an access permit for his. So it's not like he's gonna have to put curb and gutter here ever.
You won't.
They won't. He's never gonna have access to his property from 4700 West. We provided that. But as far as us sidewalk, curb and gutter, that section of ours, again, I'm not a developer. I'm not an engineer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want my kid walking on that sidewalk or playing on that sidewalk that goes to nowhere when cars all up and down that road are just flying along there and have no idea to watch for a sidewalk curb and gutter or a kid.
Right.
So for what that's worth,
Yeah.
I think it's crazy.
I think that makes sense. Okay, so one of the challenges is where the planning commission, what is the land use authority over the preliminary approval, where they made that a condition. Having it as a deferral agreement so that we get it at some point in time, I've got no problem with it. But having it as like waiving it altogether, I think would be a challenge. And so deferral still puts all the property owners on the hook, but at least you don't have to install the curb gutter and sidewalk right here. And I think the engineers are probably of the same piece of mind that you are. Don't put a sidewalk to nowhere. The only issue behind that, so speaking from the devil's advocate perspective, maybe I'm Jesus's advocate because developers are always the devil. I'm just kidding. But speaking in favor of installing the sidewalk, developers build communities, counties very rarely do that, cities very rarely do that. So the developer puts the money down, and we just go operate, maintain, and then replace in the future.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
When it goes to nowhere, there's property to the north on this, on the road to that corner of 2200.
Mhm.
Okay, those homes have nothing there. They didn't have to provide
Yeah.
any curb and gutter. And it's a state road.
Right.
And if the state's gonna widen that,
Mhm.
won't they put that in their requirements? And you're saying that the deferral is up to the developer to whenever they decide that they're gonna do that, to
Yeah.
provide that? But the homeowners that are already there don't have to?
So the homeowners that are here, right here, I mean, some of them may actually have deferral agreements because we've been doing deferral agreements for 40 years or so.
40 years, well, yeah, that home right there is probably older than all this in the room.
So the owner of that property would say,
Gibson's, yeah.
I've been here so long that my taxes should be paying for, curb gutter and sidewalk at the point that we get to density. And so you get kind of the double-edged sword of, damned if you don't, damned if you do, just depending on who's coming in. But as the place gets more and more dense, what oftentimes happens is the county can't just take the bonding magical wand and go bond and build all this curb gutter and sidewalk, because what all these guys who are out there are gonna say is, well, we didn't need it until you developed, and now we need it, and so it's your fault, and so you should build all of it instead of just this portion. Well, we wouldn't do that. That's unreasonable for us to ask of them.
From 4,000 south and 4,700 west
Mhm.
to 1,200 south, there's no curb and gutter except a dead end spot, and it's right here.
Yeah, and that is, I think, why the planning commission applied it here, because they wanted to be fair. Even though I remember the planning commission's deliberation over this, they're kind of like, do we really need it? So here's why I think the deferral is a good idea. What our plan calls for is a 10-foot wide asphalt pathway that's on the east side of 4,700. So when UDOT does come in and start doing changes or improvements or widening, one of their new initiatives is to make sure that they include pedestrian safety as well. And so they'll be looking at filling in the ditch, or burying the ditches and then putting a pathway up on top. I'd rather not.
I would do that right now, because that's called a Fremont 500, if you've never heard that term, from Hooper to Plain City, because of the students.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And it's unbelievable. And I just feel so bad because that's the only road that has any distance, the farthest one out west.
Yep.
Bicyclists use that all the time, and you have this much of a line, this much of dirt, and it drops, and I'm just going,
Lose cars in those ditches.
well, what's frustrating as a personal individual lives out there.
Yeah.
Is that it's incredible there hasn't been more serious accidents.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere to go, and I wish they had that bike path or,
Yeah.
personal path out there already, but
It's the goal.
I'm just gonna be a little sarcastic, it's on record, but we live in the county, and it seems that we are the last ones out there to get those kind of improvements, but everybody wants to go out west to do those kind of activities because there's less traffic.
That's right.
So it's kind of a,
Yeah.
darn if you do and darn if you don't situation. And it's a state road, so I know you guys don't have any direct control over that,
Yeah.
other than encourage the state to do whatever they're gonna do.
Every once in a while, we go after funding from the state, and the state's pretty good. If you're asking for funding along a state right of way, or at least parallel to a state right of way, they're pretty good at offering funding. And so 4,700 is on the plan. I just, I think we're at least 5-10 years away from actually getting a cohesive pathway. Our big goal right now is 12th Street, at least from 1900 to 4,700. Once we get that, then 4,700 becomes the next goal, from Plain City to West Haven or Hooper, whatever that leads into.
Okay, just
Long
good
term.
information for for me, 10 years from now, that'll put me pretty, I'm in the checkout generation anyway. So. But I'm just concerned because I
Yeah.
have family that lives out there.
I got stuck behind the school bus once, and because there's nowhere for the kids to walk, they have to stop at almost every other house to drop
That's
the kids
correct.
off.
Yeah.
That's actually, I got frustrated because I was stuck behind the school bus, and I thought, you know what, we're gonna put a pathway next to this road.
Well, and that's from an engineering standpoint, you put curb gutter and sidewalk in there. Then you got UDOT does something different. You're gonna tear all that infrastructure out
Yeah.
to match the new design. And so it's a waste of money and
That's exactly my thought. A deferral agreement, what it'll do, it'll apply to the property, and then when UDOT says, we're gonna make some changes here, the county's gonna say, well, we want a pathway, not just sidewalk, we want a pathway here. And these guys have already agreed, just by virtue of purchasing the property, they've already agreed to contributing towards the construction of a 4-foot wide sidewalk. And so we'll just call that deferral agreement. They'll pay what they would have otherwise paid for a 4-foot wide sidewalk. Divided by, how many lots do you have? 9. So 4-foot wide sidewalk divided by 9. And then that'll just contribute towards whatever you got built. Hopefully the back, yeah. So is this your home here?
Yes.
So that you got that to look forward to, right up in front. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Anything else to add, Felix?
No, that covers it.
Okay, tell me. What is the distance between the intersection in the middle of the subdivision and the eastern boundary line of phase 2? Do you know what that is?
So the distance from that intersection. Basically the corner of lot 7.
So the corner of the western corner of lot 7 to the eastern corner of lot 13.
Okay. What do you think?
oh yeah, if you can add those up.
What's your drawing?
Your eyes are better than mine, aren't they? Can I?
Yeah, you can pinch and zoom.
I'm watching you hold this up
Yeah.
close. I wouldn't be able to see it unless it was stuck to that chair over there. Like I can't see anything near me anymore.
I can see clear when it's further away, but then it's too small.
Okay.
1079.
Sam, while you were out,
So then C 1, 2, and 3.
you mentioned and made us aware that the zoning changed recently.
Yeah, well, the general plan changed
The general plan changed
to allow for zone changes.
to 3rd acre lots. So we may want to revisit phase 2. And make a big loop-de-loop out there. Or engineer something that,
Absolutely. No, I think that's really wise. Because the reason why they had larger lots out there were pretty obvious because they weren't septic.
Yeah.
There was no sewer.
Right.
And so
So we
once you get the sewer in, the price of land has gotten
This
so prohibitive. And people don't want an acre, half acre,
Yep.
even a 3rd acre is country to 95% of the people having a 1/3 of an acre. So that's a wise decision. I mean, you're gonna get more density, which the people like us out there that don't really want, but
Right.
in reality it's coming,
Right.
and it makes it advantageous to developers,
Yeah,
property developers.
and it's almost a 1/3 less expensive to operate and maintain the infrastructure with 3rd acre versus 1 acre, so. It makes a little bit more sense from a financial perspective, from a taxation perspective. Folks up in the Ogden Valley, where you get 3 acre minimums.
Yeah, 734.
We talked to them about, they're like, well, our taxes are so high. I'm like, well, we have a solution for you. Let's go down to, 1/4 acre lots everywhere. No, we'll pay the premium.
Yeah.
So you've got an answer.
Okay.
734.
Okay. So just something to think about for phase 2. Phase 1 is just fine. As we go towards figuring out what the rules are going to be to get people to that 3rd acre rezone, the block length is going to be 8 times whatever the lot width is. So you take your average lot width, and you times it by 8. That'll be what the block length is. So in other words, your blocks are going to be more frequent when you've got narrower lots. We're probably going to be changing the lot width for the 3rd acre zone as well. Right now it's 80. I'm going to propose 60 and maybe they land on 70. which allows your streets to be a little bit closer together and your lots to be a little deeper, which means your intersections might be closer together, but the distance between that and the next road over is going to be further. So county saves a little bit of money that way with less infrastructure. And then for pedestrian connections, we're looking at one pedestrian intersection. So where a pathway intersects either with a sidewalk and a street or another pathway, one every 500 feet. And just frame of reference, one city block here is like 660 or 630 or something like that. And so we're just looking at making sure that the kids and those who are choosing not to drive can actually get to their neighbors in a more neighborly and friendly way. So we'll talk about that when you get to the rezone of this property here, and maybe just a little pathway that cuts between lots or something like that. Okay. All right. Well, magical wand hereby approved.
Approve with conditions and findings.
Yes, sorry, with the conditions of findings of staff, and that applies to the last decision as well. Can I do that? Can I make it retroactive?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, well, good luck. So it sounds like next step is getting the final mile in, and are you gonna construct, or are you gonna construct before you record, or are you gonna have to?
I think we're gonna construct before we record. I think.
That keeps your money in your own account, or at least keep somebody else's money in an account that, isn't charging as much interest. I don't know.
Will
The
you adjourn?
manholes have been.
Hereby adjourned.
Oh, sorry.
Fine.
The manholes, just to get the manholes have been, in fact, I just got word today that we'll have manholes on the 15th of December,
Oh, okay.
but we've been waiting for manholes